Hundreds of millions of rands meant for vital equipment at public hospitals. A ghost company with no track record in the medical industry. The untimely demise of a key role player. This is a strange saga of an 800 million rand project to install oxygen plants at health facilities across South Africa. Daily Maverick has partnered up with our friends at amaBhungane. Together we found many more discrepancies and red flags, courtesy of a shadowy company with no track record in the medical field. Will the money be spent wisely, or will it vanish into thin air? I'm Pieter-Louis Myburgh, investigative journalist at Daily Maverick. Remember our Digital Vibes investigations from 3 years back? That dodgy 150 million rand contract that got this guy booted from President Ramaphosa's cabinet? It seems the Department of Health is again mixed up in dubious dealings, this time involving much more money. Unlike the Digital Vibes contract, the Oxygen project involves life-giving equipment at hospitals that service the country's poorest residents. Let's take a look at where this project started and where things seem to go wrong. During the COVID-19 pandemic, healthcare workers and other stakeholders identified a shortage of medical-grade oxygen at state hospitals. The Global Fund, which pools resources for healthcare projects across the world, gave our Department of Health some money to address this problem, although it took a good 4 years to finally get the project going. South African taxpayers will, to a lesser degree, help foot the bill, seeing as the South African government also donates money to the Global Fund. The equipment intended for our hospitals are called Pressure Swing Absorption Oxygen Plants, or PSA plants. They're basically big machines that produce oxygen on site at health facilities. So, there's the Global Fund with the money, and there's our Department of Health, which runs the hospitals. The presence of a third role player makes things slightly more complicated. The Department of Health didn't run this tender process by itself, but instead roped in the Independent Development Trust, or IDT. The IDT is a government body too, and it falls under the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. It acts as a so-called implementing agent for client departments like the Department of Health. It's important to remember that the IDT still has to honor its client department's directives. In late 2022, the Department of Health put together a cost analysis in preparation for the bid. It informed the IDT that the oxygen plants for 60 earmarked hospitals should cost around 250 million rand. The IDT then invited companies to bid for the project. In mid-2023, several companies submitted their bids, and this is where things started to go pear-shaped. Instead of keeping to a budget of around 250 million rand, the IDT and the DOH now said they were going to spend 836 million rand. This is a 230% increase from the original budget. So, where will all of this money go, and why are we so concerned about this? Firstly, the project's scope has become smaller, despite the much bigger budget. Instead of 60 hospitals, only 55 will now receive these oxygen plants. The biggest chunk of this money will go to a company called Bhungane Pty Limited. Bhungane's contract is worth 428 million rand, and that's to install oxygen plants at 44 of the earmarked hospitals. We wanted to know who this mysterious entity was, and our investigation only sounded alarm bells. Bhungane has no website, no physical premises that we could find, and it doesn't have the required SAHPRA accreditation to work with complex medical equipment. The company records, meanwhile, showed us that the company has one director, a Mr. Nathi Ndlovu. We wanted to ask Mr. Ndlovu if he or his company had any experience in the medical equipment sector, but we simply couldn't get hold of him. He didn't answer his phone, and he ignored the myriad text and WhatsApp messages we sent him. Then, after our first report, we received the shocking news that Mr. Ndlovu had passed away. There are also questions over the other contractors the IDT appointed. One of them, Mazia, has once been accused of tender collusion. So, what will happen next? The Hawks are currently investigating the IDT, so they may very well take a look at the oxygen plants project. Following our report, the Minister of Public Works, Dean McPherson, has demanded answers from the IDT. So the organization will have to give the minister all manner of documents related to the project. And then there's us, the media. Keep an eye out for ongoing coverage on this matter.